right, good morning everyone, and welcome to this Mag Plus webinar. Let me just clear some things off my screen here. My name is Mike Haney. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Mag Plus, and today I'm going to walk you through the basics of how to sort of get started with Mag Plus. Everything from downloading and installing the tools to setting up our instant review capability on your iPad, to building a simple page and using some of our great built-in features like pinning, which is the ability to design once and have it work in both orientations. Then I'll show you how to use our production tool, which is a piece of software we have that lets you build a whole issue and move things around, move verticals and pages around in the issue, how to export that. And then I'll show you a couple of other sort of neat power tricks for reviewing and that kind of thing at the end. So I wanted to start today out on our website here. This is magplus.com, and this is where you really get started. You've probably been here already if you've signed up for the webinar, but this is where you come to download the tools. And before I download, I just want to point out a couple of other places here on the site that are really helpful to have. One is here under this features and price. If you haven't taken a look at this already, this is where you'll see our different programs that we offer, the different ways that you can come on and publish and take your creations live to the app stores with our products. You can see we've got an entry-level model that's only $199, so for only $200 you can get your app live in the store, get people downloading it, and of course our tools are always free. And if you look through this chart, it'll show you all the differences among those programs. The other place that's really helpful to know about and to check back on is our Help and Inspiration tab here. So this is everything from tutorials, explanations of how all the various things that I'm going to talk about today and a lot more things that we cover in other webinars, how those things work, as well as some manuals that you can download out here, really thorough manuals that'll tell you what each little button does and means. I really encourage you to download these, have them handy, make sure you refer to them if you get a little confused about what this button does or that button does. And finally here under our showcase section, this we're always updating. We'll be putting some new things up pretty soon. But these are examples of things that clients have built using our tools. And so it's everything from slideshows to HTML to really interesting layouts using our unique two-layer system. Really good place to go just for inspiration and to see what people have done with the tool set. But now let me head back home and start the download and installation process. So as I said, the tool set is always free, so I can just click this download button, fill in my information here. In fact, I'm already a Mag Plus user, as you can imagine, so I'm just going to hit my login button. If you've already installed the tools and you just need to put them on another computer or you lost them on that one, you can always come back here, log in, and re-download the tools. There's no limit to the number of people in your organization that can use them. There's no limit to the number of computers you can put them on. It's really wide open. All you need to do here is log in, and then I'll get to my page where I can choose which version I want. So I'm running CS 5.5 here on my Mac, but we also do support Windows, and we support a couple of back versions of the InDesign and Creative Suite as well, 5 and 4. Hit the download button, and it's going to take me out now to start downloading my DMG package here. And also give me a video and some text instructions for what to do with this. So if you get a little lost in what I'm doing, you can always come back to this space and watch the video again. That download went into my downloads folder, so I'm just going to open that up. And you can see here I got this Mag Plus CS 5.5 DMG. So just like any Mac program, you can double click that DMG and it's going to open up a little hard drive here. We also have here an installer, so the installation guide is in here. Again, another resource for you if you get a little lost in how to get these things installed. One point I want to make is if you have started playing with these tools before, if you've downloaded an earlier version of our software, 2.5, which was our last version, you need to completely uninstall that before you install 3.0, otherwise you'll get some errors. So just go through and search for anything that says Mag Plus, delete it off of your system, and then come and install 3.0. If you've never installed anything before, you're fine. You can just go through this process here. So I just double click this installer, and this will just very simply walk me through the steps. Very standard software installation. You can agree to the EULA. I promise there's nothing nothing sinister in there. Here I can choose which things I want to install. So again, if you just need one piece that you didn't have before that you had lost, you can come back and go through this and only install the production tools or the plugin. I'm just going to install the whole package here right now. As you can see, it doesn't take up much space. I'm just going to let it install it right on my hard drive. Type in my password for my computer. Oh, typed in the wrong one. There we go. Only takes a couple of seconds to get this installation done because it's a pretty small installation. And as soon as this is there, I'll show you what it did on the machine. So I'll close that. Now you can go ahead and delete this hard drive here. You can just right click and hit eject. And that'll take that off of your desktop. You don't need that anymore. And let's go see what this did on our system. You could also delete this DMG file if you wanted to. You don't need that anymore either. So if I go out now under Applications, you're going to see a couple of things that it did. Here under InDesign CS 5.5, there's my InDesign folder. There's another folder called Plugins. And now inside this Plugins folder, it's installed our Mag Plus plugin. So you don't have to do anything here. These are all the files it needs. It's right where it needs to be. When I open up InDesign, we'll see that there. It's also put another folder in my Applications folder here called Mag Plus. And this is where it has the examples. So a whole bunch of examples here that show you the various A layer, B layer, pinning, those kinds of things. You can get rid of these if you want, but they're a really helpful guide for you. Also the blank templates that we're going to be using to build things. All Mag Plus creations need to start with this template. Once you build one out, of course, you can just copy and save as new versions of that. But you can't just create your own page and then start building in it. You always want to start with this template because it's set up specifically to work with our plugin and to work with our process and our system. The other piece that's in here, this is our production tool, and we need to do a separate install on this. So all you need to do is double click this. It's an Adobe Air app. If you don't already have Adobe Air on your machine, it's going to ask if you want to install that first. You can go ahead and install it. It's a light program. I've got it, so in this case it's just going to install this Mag Plus production tool. Click installation. Yep, go ahead and put it in the applications. And that's all there is to that. It's really very simple. And this is our Mag Plus production tool. And we're going to come back to this a little bit later, and I'll show you how to set that up and exactly what it's used for. For now, we'll just sort of hide it out of the way. But you can see now that we've done the installation here in my applications folder. I now have an icon for that production tool. Excuse me. So that's really all there is to installation. You know, really simple software install. Double click, hit OK, and it'll put everything where it needs to be. And the key thing to remember is just that it's here in your applications folder. That's where you're going to find these templates. You can move these around if you want. They don't need to stay in this spot. So you can take all of this, the templates and the examples, put them in another folder if you want to. I'll just leave them there for now. So let's open up one of these blank templates here and start building an actual page. Now you'll see there's a few different templates in here. The one that you're going to use most of the time to build most of your pages is this Mag Plus template here. This is our standard blank page. What these other two are for is if you want to build a custom drop-down table of contents from our navigation, which is one of the functions we have. There's a slightly different template that's used for that. It's a little bit smaller than the standard template, so this is what you want to use for that one. There's a lot more detail about that out in this help and inspiration section of the website. You'll see exactly how to build a custom TOC, and also you'll find it in our manuals, what that means and what it'll end up looking like. Help template similarly. Within the Mag Plus app, once you've got your own branded reader app out there, if there's a help button in the navigation, when somebody taps on that, it'll bring up a vertical page, if you will, on top of whatever they're reading that tells them how to use the app. You know, if they get lost, they're not quite sure how to swipe pages or do something, you have this help file in there for them. That needs to be built on its own template as well. You can make it look like anything you want to, but it needs to start with this template. So those are handy ones to keep around. Again, if you lose them, you can always go back and download them from the site again later. We're going to start here in the Mag Plus template CS55. Now you're going to get this box sometimes when you open it up. you can go ahead and click Don't Update Links. It's not a big deal. I'll show you what those are actually for. So here's my Mag Plus template. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. You'll see that it's a certain width. It's about the width, or it is the width of the iPad, of the widest version of the iPad. It's very, very long, and that's because one of the things you can do in Mag Plus is have scrolling, vertically scrolling content. So users can scroll up and down to read more on an article. This template's very, very long so that you can put as much content as you want, really scrolling in that single page or over the top of a given image, and I'll show you a little more specifically what that means in terms of working with our layers and having scrolling content. But that's why it looks the shape that it does. I want to go up and show you here in our layers palette, one of the things that's unique about this template, and the reason we want to start and always use this template is because it's already set up with all the layers that you need to create the content, the Mag Plus content. And we have 2 layers of content that you can work with, and when we start building the page I'll show you what those are. But first I want to show you the couple of kind of handy guide layers that we have built in here as well, and this will also explain why you were getting that update links dialog box when you first opened it. You can see if you click here on the iPad landscape or iPad portrait layers, what that's doing is just bringing up an image of the iPad. In fact, I can see it's an iPad 1. We should probably update that to an iPad 2, but it's the same size. And really what that's for is just a guide for you to see, okay, on this blank template I have here, if I put some content in, this is what will be visible to the user if they're looking at it in portrait, and this is what will be visible to the user if they're looking at it in landscape. These will never print, they don't export, it's just there as a guide for you. And these images of the iPad are the links that it was looking for. You don't really need those to be linked because, again, you'll never print or export them. They're just there as a guide. Finally, there's a third guide layer here that shows you both orientations at once, that shows you the full area you have to work with. This center square, which is 768 pixel square, is always the live area. This is the part that's always visible no matter which orientation somebody is in. And this cross shape essentially shows you the 2 different orientations. So as you'll see, things that take up the entire screen simply crop differently when you turn the device. So these are just the handy layers that are there for you as kind of a guide, and you can see we've also got some built-in guides here that show you the same thing. So let's start populating this with some content and build out a sample page, and you'll see kind of what we're talking about. So I'm going to start on this B slides main content. This is our background layer. So this is a layer that's always going to move in full screen slides. I'm just going to put a picture on this. So I'm going to draw a picture that takes up the entire screen. Then I'm going to hit my get picture. And I'm going to work from this beautiful recipe that we sometimes work with, just because it's a nice image to look at. So now I've placed my picture in there. I can just do my kind of standard InDesign tools, fit my content proportionally here. Oop. Let me make sure this is actually filling up my whole screen. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. Just want to make sure we're not stretching out our coffee cake here. Now I'm just going to center this a little bit. Now I've drawn the image box this size because, again, this is the full screen in either orientation. This is what people are going to see, and this is my background picture. And now I'm just going to open up another document that has some text already established. And I'm just going to copy and paste this already designed text in here so you don't have to sit and watch me play with fonts and kerning and leading and all that stuff. So this is my cornmeal cake here. Oh, that's the wrong one. So I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to just hit the copy button. And this is literally how you can build this if you're working from existing print content or something that you already have designed. You really can just go in and copy and paste into this template and then move things around a bit or tweak them to fit this particular template. So I'm going to paste all that in. Now I've just pasted that onto my A layer. So this is my layer that will slide over the top of that background layer, and that users will be able to turn off to get a full screen view of that coffee cake, or cornmeal cake I guess it is. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit now. You can see I'm moving most of this text into the non-visible area. That's because I want somebody when they come onto this page to only see the title and this beautiful image, and then I'll let them scroll up if they want some more, if they want the actual recipe and some detail about this. And these are all design decisions that you can make. Now you'll notice that so far what I've done here is nothing much different than what I would do if I was designing a normal print document, or the way I would normally design in InDesign. The only thing that's a little different is I'm thinking about these two layers and how I want that content to render, but I haven't done anything Mag Plus specific yet. It's really a lot of what you're doing with this system is just designing. It's just that your canvas is a little bit different. So there's no coding going on here. There's nothing really technical you need to worry about. Most of it is just this act here saying I want it to render this way. Now let's get into our Mag Plus plugin and let's set up our instant review so we can look at how this is actually going to look on the iPad when we've got it live, and how this scrolling and things are going to function. So in order to do that, I go down here under my window. Let me make sure I'm going into the right place. Let me jump out of here quick and just make sure we've got things installed where they're supposed to be. Make sure I'm in 5.5, and I'm going to go into my 5.5, make sure my plugin is in here. It is, and it's not showing up right now. Normally my plugin, my Mag Plus plugin, would show up here under my windows. There should be an option in here for me to do it. I'm pretty sure the reason it's not doing that is because I already had InDesign running when I installed that plugin, and usually for a new plugin to take effect we have to restart InDesign. So if this happens to you, if you install it and you go, wait, I got no Mag Plus plugin here, but it's there in your plugins folder, try restarting InDesign and that should solve it. So let's see now if it solves it. I'm going to save this since we've already done a little work on it. I'm just going to save it here. Talking about file structure and where you save things, again, there's really nothing specific that you have to do for Mag Plus. You can make your file structure any way you want to. You can grab images from wherever you need to around your hard drive. When it comes time to export this and to build our custom format that the iPad can read, the system will go ahead and grab all those things and do the conversions and put them all together in a neat package. So you don't really have to think too much about your file structure and where you're saving things and where you're putting them any more than you would when you're normally building a document. So I'm just going to save this here, and I'm just going to quit out of this. I don't need to save that. Now let's restart InDesign and see if we can get our plugin to show up. If I had read the installation manuals, it would have told me as much here. That's a good reason to always read the manuals before you start doing things. All right, now let's go back into our folder. Let's open up our recipe test. I don't need to update those links. Again, that's just those iPad images. And now if I go under Window, you'll see we've got a folder called Mag Plus. So again, if that's not showing up, just restart InDesign and it'll pick it up. When I choose to view that Mag Plus window, here's what I'm getting. This is the Mag Plus plugin. So any of the specific things I want to do specifically to Mag Plus are done here in the plugin. And I'll just walk you through a couple of the basics. There's a lot of things you can do in here, some of which, like adding movies and video and audio, HTML, we cover in other webinars. You can watch some of those recorded webinars out on the site. I'm just going to take you through some of the basics today. So first, the Apple iPad is the device I'm designing for. In future versions, there will be more devices you can pull down here, Android and other sizes as well. The issue here, this is a very important thing to set up. This is an issue folder, and what that means, I mentioned earlier that when we're all done with this page, we're going to click export. The system's going to convert all the images into the right DPI and RGB and size and shape and everything that it needs to be, and it's going to collect all these assets together so that our production tool can read it, and so we can ultimately create the final file that the iPad app is going to read. So I need to tell it where do I want it to collect all those things together, and that's what we call our issue folder. This can be any folder, and it can be anywhere you want it to be. It's just important that as you're building a particular issue, you're collecting everything to that same issue folder. So I'm just going to make one here in this demo material, which is my kind of blank thing here, and I don't have one in there yet, so I'm just going to say new folder, and I'm going to create one that says issue folder. Create, there it is. If I already had one created, I could just go out here and pick that. Now if I was building my next page of this, let's say it was a cookbook I was building here, when I opened up that document, I would go up to issue, I would choose that same folder so that it's collecting all of my pages, or what we call verticals, together for that issue in the same issue folder. When we hit export later, I'll show you what that looks like. Minimum MIB. MIB is our file format. You'll see that in our documentation, MIB. It just stands for Mag Plus Issue Bundle. It's an extension that we made up, but it describes our custom format that you're ultimately creating with our tool set. And we have different versions of that. You always want to just go ahead and pick the latest one, 3.0. Unless you're building something for an app that's already out there that you know is on a previous version, just always pick 3.0, the latest version, and you should be safe. In this field here called ID, there's two different ways to describe this vertical in the system. One is the ID and one is the name. And the difference between them is that the ID is the way that the internal system thinks about or refers to this vertical. So this is a name that will never be seen by the public. It's just for you to know this is what it's called, and for the system to know this is what it's called. So I'm just going to call this one cornmeal cake. No spaces in this one. Now the name of the vertical, this is the thing that the user, end user, your reader will actually see. They'll see it both in the navigation when they're flipping through the thumbnails of the issue. This will appear above that thumbnail to say this is the cornmeal cake story, and they'll also see it if they bookmark this page. It'll show up in their list of bookmarks with this name on it. So this you want to make sure is something that makes sense to users. In this case, I'm just going to call it the same thing. I'm going to say cornmeal cake recipe. This one you can have spaces in, it can be a little bit longer, etc. I won't go much deeper into this space here right now. So these are things you really need to worry about. This is the only part you really need to make sure is actually set up. You got to have an issue folder, you want to have an ID, and you want to have a name. And this ID needs to be unique for each vertical that you're doing, because the system needs to understand this is a different vertical than the next page, the next recipe that I'm creating, for instance. Now I'm going to go under settings. I'm going to set up this instant review. That's done right here at the top under this push review to device. And what that means is literally when I hit the review button, it's going to build this file and it's going to push it out to my iPad. And the way it does that is it looks for that iPad on the same wireless network. So you have to be on Wi-Fi. This is a thing we see a lot when people are saying, hey, my review's not working. It's probably an issue with your Wi-Fi network. Either the two devices aren't on the same Wi-Fi network, your computer and your iPad, or you've got a firewall or something else is happening there. But Wi-Fi is the way the two devices connect. So, and it's doing it by looking for the IP address of that iPad on the network, which is what these numbers are here. Now the way to find that on your iPad, and I'm just going to go out here to my simulator. So in order to show you what it would look like on an iPad, I'm using the iOS simulator here on my desktop. And a lot of people ask us about this. Hey, can we get this? You can. The way you get this iOS simulator, you have to be an Apple developer, and it's part of the whole development tool set that you get called Xcode. When you sign up to be a developer, you get this simulator, and if you have this, you can contact our support people and we'll send you a special version of the reviewer that'll run on this simulator here. We don't really encourage this. It's much better to use an actual iPad because it's a very different experience to have it on an iPad underneath your fingers where you can actually tap and touch and swipe and see how things render. That's really the way you want to go for reviewing, but if you need this for some particular reason, it is possible. I use it here in these demos because it's easier to show you here on my screen. So I've already got the Mag Plus Reviewer installed here on my simulator. If you want to get the Mag Plus Reviewer, again, that's a free app. You can get it anytime you want. It's downloadable out in the iTunes Store. And when you go through our installation process, it'll show you the link to that. If you go to the store and you just search Reviewer, it'll be the first thing that comes up here, the Mag Plus Reviewer. So there it is. It's free. You can just go ahead and install it. I've already got it installed, so I'm going to open up the Mag Plus Reviewer. The first time you open the reviewer, you're going to see this little sample issue that we've created, which shows you some inspiration, some things that some of our clients have created, and tells you a little bit about the tool set itself and how to use this. To actually use this reviewer to review things, which is what we want to do today, the first thing you have to do is sign in here under User Settings. Now this is the same Mag Plus account that you used to download the tools or that you set up on our site earlier. If you're sending this to somebody else who doesn't have an account or you didn't make one on the site, you can just hit the Create Account button and you can actually create your account here as well. But I've already got one, so I'm just going to sign in. Now once I log into this, you'll see that it creates a couple more buttons up here in my in my navigation, review and refresh. Review is going to be the button that we can use if we want to pull down what we're reviewing. Otherwise, that push I was talking about, we really don't have to worry about these buttons because it's going to just push that file out to this device. Now to get that IP address that I mentioned earlier, it's here under the Help menu. So click under the Help menu. Again, as long as I'm on the same Wi-Fi network here on both devices, in this case I am, it's my push service IP address here. So it's the IP address and then the port. So we just want to make sure that this push address matches what's out here. In this case, I think it does. It looks like it's already set up correctly, probably from when I was doing this earlier. So let me see, 10.186.4593. Yep, so this is already set up. If I needed to put in a new one, I can just hit the plus button. I can type in that IP address and hit OK, and it'll do it. Now it'll also remember previous ones you've used. So here under the pull down, if you've already typed one in, it'll stay there as well. So now I'm set up to actually review. I can actually go down here and hit one of these two review buttons, and you'll see we've got a little explanation of what they are. Fast review essentially means that it's going to do a much quicker review because it's not going to go into Photoshop to do all of that image conversion magic that I was talking about. It's just going to do it with InDesign, which means your images are going to be slightly lower quality doing a fast review, but it's going to happen quicker. If you want to see exactly what those images are going to look like when they're fully converted, then you want to use the full review button. Fast review is typically what we use when you just want to see how's my layout going to look and how's this function going to work. So as soon as I hit the fast review, what it's doing right now is it's doing all that conversion work. You see it only takes a couple of seconds. It's really very fast. Now if I go out to my simulator, here's my page. You'll see that my image is here in the background. My text is scrolling up over the top of it here, scrolling all the way down to the bottom. When it hit the bottom of this page, even though there's a lot more white space down here, the system will interpret the bottom of the A layer content, so it knows, okay, this is the last bit of content here on this A layer. That's the end of the page. If I wanted to scroll down further, I could just make that box a little bit longer, but I like it ending where it's ending now. And again, as with any Mag Plus design, the user can double tap the screen, it'll turn off that A layer, and then they can just look at this big image here. Now if I turn the device, you'll see that it's just cropping this picture a little bit differently according to that kind of plus shaped area that I was showing you before. You'll see here I'm not seeing the edges of the plate. If I turn it, then I can see the full edges of the plate. So that's something to always keep in mind, and why we have those guide layers in there is what it's going to look like in either orientation. Now, there's another kind of neat little trick in here that it did, and I'm going to show you how we did this to control how the layout looks in either orientation without creating it from scratch, and that's a function we call pinning. So you see these two boxes have moved when I turn it. That's because they're each set to pin to a different edge, and what pinning essentially means is to take a particular object and move it to the same relative distance from any given edge, top, bottom, left, right. And the way you set that up here in InDesign is using the plugin, and it's over here in the plugin under pinning. So if I wanted to turn this off, let's say I don't want either one of these to move, I can pick each one of my individual boxes. I could just change the horizontal pin to none. Let's hit fast review and I'll show you what that does. Now the reason this was already on is because there's actually a setting under the settings part of the plugin where I can have it do this automatically. So what the system did, because I had this checked, the system said, okay, this is near the right edge and this box is near the left edge, so I'm going to guess that that's how you want to pin these. What it means is that you can essentially build a dual orientation ready document without ever thinking about it. You don't have to do any sort of planning around it at all. The system will just take care of it. Now, most people want a little bit more control over it than that, so you may choose to either go in and uncheck this, which means the settings will always be to none and you can go in and manually do it, or you can always go in and override the settings even if the default is set. So let's go back up to our simulator and we'll see what this looks like without any pinning on. So now you'll see that what I actually did, this is a good lesson, is I turned off the pinning from my background box but not from my text box, because these are all different boxes here. So this creates a pretty funky effect, but not very optimal for reading. So let's go back in and fix that. As you can see, let me zoom in a little bit more to make it easier to see. This is one box. This, my little white box here, is another one. I want these to all be the same, so the way I'm going to do that is the way I normally would in InDesign. I'm just going to group everything, and I want to include this little line here as well. Make sure I got that in here. So I just select everything, I group it. Now I can turn on pinning for this entire group of things. So I'm going to keep this pinned to the right. Let's see if I got that right now. And this is really the process you can go through. This is the advantage to fast review. Try something, hit review, see how it looks, see if it's behaving the way you want it to. All right, now when I turn it, you'll see that that whole block of things is moving together. That's how I want it to work. So that's pinning. If you're pinning on the A layer, you'll notice that you can only pin left or right. That's because there sort of is no top or bottom to the A layer because it can be free scrolling. If you're pinning on the B layer, you can pin in different directions as well. And I'll show you what that looks like with this little arrow that we have here. So I'm going to group this. I'm going to pull this thing off of the A layer and I'm going to put it on the B pinned blocks layer. There's two versions of the B layer. They behave the same. The only difference is if you want something on that background layer to pin, put it on this pinned blocks layer. So I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to put it kind of in this corner. So I always want it to be in this corner. So I'm going to say horizontal pin to left and vertical pin to bottom. And now let's hit review and see how that turns out. Alright, so there it is here in my vertical orientation. I can see that it's this amount of distance from the bottom there, and it's this amount of distance from the left edge. So now if I turn my device, you'll see that it's scooted up to the corner there. Now it's still on that B layer, so if I double tap, it doesn't go away. It stays there, and it tells people they can go ahead and scroll. But you'll see it's kept that relative distance from the edge, top or bottom end left edge. So it means that you can get pretty precise control over where things move and how they behave in either orientation, but again, without having to start from scratch. Now what if I wanted more content? What if I wanted a different picture down in this same layout here? Let me show you how to do that, and then we'll get into exporting and getting rid of this. I can just go here under my pages, and I can add a new page. So now if I zoom out, you'll see that here's my page I just built. Here's my second page. So let me populate this quickly with another recipe and you'll see how that behaves. Essentially, introducing a new page is introducing a new B layer slide. That A layer can sort of scroll on forever, but if you want that B layer slide to switch, that's when you need to put in a new page. So let's put in this picture of Mint. Let's fill that one up there. Center that quick. Now we'll grab some other text for this. Again, I'm just copying and pasting out of here. There we go. Again, I've already set all of this, so I can just select it all, copy, go back to this document, paste, and I actually want that to be on my A layer. So there we go. I'm going to position this kind of similarly here. And we can just hit fast review and see how this turned out. Now the more pages you have in a document, longer it's going to take to fast review because it's building and converting more content. If you have movies, that'll take a little longer as well. Alright, so now I'm scrolling down. I get to the bottom of this document, and as I keep scrolling up, boom, you'll see it's brought in this new picture into the background, and here's my A layer content for that page or that slide, is now moving over the top of this, and when I get to the bottom, it's just the bottom of the page, or there's no more content there. And same thing if I go back up, it'll do a shift there. So you can make these verticals as long as you want them by just continuing to add pages like that. They can be a single page or they can be multiple pages. Now I'll show you one more quick thing here before we export, and that's the difference between A layer only and B layer only. So what I've just showed you is a way to use both of the layers that we have to have content sliding over the top of content, but you can also use either one of those layers alone and not have a two-layer system. So let me show you first what a B layer only version would look like. So here I'm going to take this content that's on my A layer, I'm going to put it all here on my B layer, and I'm just going to put it all right up here at the top. This is going to be kind of an ugly design, but you'll get the point. And let me go down to page 2 and just do something similar here. Take all my A layer content, paste it onto my B layer, and I'm moving all this up, and you'll see why, because what I'm doing now is taking away the ability for the content to scroll freely over the top of that page. Now there's only going to be this slide, this full screen slide of content. And over here I'm going to say no A layer. And now let's hit fast review. So this is a way to make what you can think of as a more traditionally sort of paged document. If you want it to always just move in full screen slides, this is how you do that. So you'll see here double clicking does nothing because it's all here on the B layer. And if I scroll up, I'm not continuing to scroll there. It's just moving in full screen slides. This is popular for really long stories. Sometimes people like multiple columns of text and for it to read more like a traditionally paged story and not have the free scrolling text. Now, the other option that we have here, I'll show you quickly, is to do A layer only. So now I'm going to paste all this back on the A layer. I'm going to scoot it back down because I actually want this to be down a little bit more. I'm going to take this off and put this on the A layer as well. And let's go up and do the same thing here. Now what this is going to do is the whole layer is going to be free scrolling. And again, that double tap isn't going to work because there's not going to be a two-layer system to turn off. There is no background layer in this case. Oop. Let me just move this text down a little bit and make it long. Okay, now instead of checking no A layer, I'm going to check no B layer. And you'll see how this behaves a little differently as well. Let's pop out to our sim. Here it comes in. Oh, I didn't put things on the right layer. Oh, there we go. So you see what's happened here is that it's actually, this image got placed in front of my text, but you see the point. I'm scrolling down, I'm scrolling down. This is all just one big long document here. So it's not text scrolling over the top, it's just, here's the end of my first page, goes right into my second page, and here's all the content. And there is no double click again. So let's say this is actually what we wanted to do. Let's say this is what we were happy with, and we're ready now to export this thing. We've done our review. We're pretty good with it all. That's when I'm going to click this export button here. So let me just go ahead and do that. Now when I click export, it's kind of the same as hitting full review. Now it actually is going to trigger Photoshop to go in and do all that image conversion and make it all nice and pretty. And if I go under here under settings, you can see where I can choose that here, downscale images using Photoshop. That means when I hit export, I want Photoshop to do that conversion. And if you want to get really geeky with it, you can choose the resample way that it does it, nearest neighbor, bilinear, bicubic. Those are pretty technical, but you can actually really get detailed about how it's doing that conversion. And you can pick the version of Photoshop you want to do the conversion here. You can also force it to output only PNG images, which is going to make your file a little bit bigger, but they're going to look pretty nice. If you choose JPEG, which is what it's going to do unless you check that, you can have some different quality settings here. Again, it's a trade-off of file size versus image quality, but always worth playing with if you want to adjust your file size and make sure you're getting the best quality. So now let's go out and look in that issue folder. Let's see what we just exported. So here's my issue folder. you'll see it created a folder in here called verticals. So this is where it's going to collect all my different verticals that I export. And here's that, this is my ID I put in. Remember cornmeal cake? That's how it's going to identify this folder. And you'll see here it's written the XML for how it describes how this page should work. It's built in thumbnails for our preview. Here's all of my image assets that have all been converted. All my text has been converted into images, etc. Now you don't really have to go into this folder. I just wanted to show you what's in there. So what do we do with this? Well, now we jump into our production tool. So let's open up the Mag Plus production tool and let's set this up. This is the piece of software that you use to kind of build each one of these individual verticals that you're exporting out of InDesign into a full issue. So again, to set this up, the first thing I do is make sure I'm pointing at that issue folder. This is an old issue folder, so I'm just going to click plus. That's going to say, all right, where's your issue folder here? This is the one I just created, so I'm going to select that. Now as soon as I point it to that, it's looking out in the issue folder and going, okay, where are my exported folders? It sees this one, and it puts it here in my clipboard. And from here I can just take and I can drag it in, and then I've got the first page of my actual magazine. Let me point to a little bit more full folder so you can see what it looks like when you have multiple pages. So here's a preview issue for Outside Magazine, one of our clients. And here's, you can see what it looks like when you've got multiple pages in an issue. Now I can always take and move these things around. You know, I want that page to come first, or I want it to come later. I can zoom in on this a little bit more if I want to see these pages bigger, make sure they're the right one. I can also view these in a list if I want to just look at all the names this way, or here in my preview. Let me go back to our other issue folder, and we'll just keep those away. Let me just show you the couple other fields quick, excuse me, that you want to set up when the first time you open up this production tool and start using it. So here you can see it saying, hey, you got to fill in an issue ID. Think of an issue ID kind of like that vertical ID that we did before. This is a name really for your reference only and for the system to know how to refer to this full issue and build it into the file name of the MIB that we actually come out with. But again, this is never going to be public to anybody else, so I'm just going to say recipe book. Orientation, now we didn't really talk about this in the plugin, but you can always lock the orientation of any given vertical or of an entire issue, and that's here under orientation. Auto means it's going to behave the way we've seen, it's going to work in both directions, or I can lock it to portrait or landscape. So I can choose that on an individual vertical basis, or if I know I just want the whole issue to be locked a certain way, I can go there as well. MIB version, again, just like the other one, make sure you're selecting the most recent, and make sure this matches what you've chosen out here. If it doesn't, it's going to give you a little warning sign. So if I say I want this to be a 1.4 MIB, it's going to go, hey, hang on, you made a MIB of 3.0 there. So just make sure that matches. Finally, brand. Brand is, again, a part that will go into your file names here. This is something you only have to set up once, or sort of once per brand, really, that you're working on. So if this were a magazine, for instance, think of the brand as the magazine name and the issue as the month of the actual issue. So to set up a brand, I can go here under Preferences, and actually first I can go up to File, Open Brand Settings Editor. I can click the New button, give it a brand ID again the same way. This is a Williams-Sonoma cookbook, so I'm just going to say, or that I'm using content from, so let's do that. The brand description, this is just for your reference. Again, it's never going to be seen public, so we'll just call it cookbook. And then again, we'll make sure that the MIB version is, default MIB version is always going to be 3.0. Get confused about any of this, there are these little things here that'll tell you what they are. As soon as I filled in those things, I hit save, and this is going to create a folder, or a file rather, called magplus.mags. This is just a little file that stores this information so that you don't have to keep re-entering this every time you start a new issue. I'm going to save it. I'll replace the one I already had out there. As soon as that's ready, I can click Close. And now I can go under my Preferences tab here. And under Local Brand Settings, I just want to go point it to that file so it always knows where to grab that information from. Now when I go back here, go under my pull-down menu under Brand, there's my brand I just created, is my cookbook. That's my description that showed up there. And you'll see here under my file name, that's what our GUID is. There's my brand ID, there's my issue ID, and that's number is that number of MIB. So hit save, So let's say this were my whole issue and I was happy with this. This is all I wanted to do. The last step in all of this, once you've got it in the order you want, is hit the Create MIB button. As I said, MIB is the final format that you're going to actually upload to our site to publish. That's the file that the reader is going to read, the iPad app reader is going to read. So if I hit Create MIB, it doesn't take very long. And if we go back out into our issue folder, now you'll see we've got a .mib file in here. And there's the name of it. And if I go out under to our publish site, once you become a customer of Mag Plus, the other piece of the system you get is access to what we call Mag Plus Publish. And that's our back end for where you manage the uploading of new issues, where you actually do your app build itself. So we'll just jump down to our default account. And this is what it looks like out here. This is, again, once you become a customer, we'll give you much more details about how to use this site, but this is where you upload all of the assets to create your own branded reader app. You hit a button once you've got everything and we spit you back the app file. It's where you upload and create new issues. So if I wanted to turn that issue I just built into something, I would say add new issue. I'd give it a title, I'd give it a description, I'd connect it to an iTunes payment token if I want this to be a paid issue. I'd give it a little cover file so in the in-app store it shows up, and then I would upload that file that I just created. That .mib file is what I would upload here to make it a real issue. So I think that about covers the full steps that it takes from downloading the tools all the way through to publishing the issue itself. If you have any other questions about this, you can always hit us at support@magplus.com. You can go out to our website. Oh, here, I already got it open. If you go to the Help and Inspiration tab, it'll take you right to our forums here. There's a lot of great forum questions already out there. Always worth searching that. If you say, hey, something here isn't working, somebody here says, hey, my Dropbox external review isn't working, we always man this forum. Our great support team will come in, they'll answer questions there, so your question may already be answered there. But if not, you can always email support@magplus and we'll get back to you as well. Go check out the showcase and see some of the examples of things you can do. And if you want to watch this webinar again, if you just can't get enough of my inspiring voice here, you can always come back and watch it. We've got all of our previous webinars are saved out here, so you can always come back and watch them. You want to get a little deeper into thing, you can check out how to use video, audio, snapping. You can check out an HTML webinar that we did that shows you how to incorporate HTML objects into your vertical. Lots of stuff to watch out here to get going. So thanks everybody for watching today. We'll talk to you again next week.